Hello, New Garden students, and welcome back to another teaching video. I hope you are having a great day, and thanks for watching. We are on week 3 of our series, More Than a Hashtag, and we're going to be on Zoom Wednesday night at 7 p.m. as usual to discuss all of this conversation about justice that we're going to have and to hang out together. So check us out on Zoom at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. The link is at newgarden.church/chat. So, it is July, which is crazy, and it is so hot outside and bright, and hopefully you have your go-to pair of sunglasses. I usually leave mine in the car, and then they get really hot, so I can't put them on my face for a while, so maybe you have learned better than me, but have you ever heard of polarized sunglasses? They're not like regular sunglasses. They're kind of special. They make things look a little different and kind of enhance what you're seeing. So I'm going to show you a picture of what polarized sunglasses do. Check that out. It's pretty cool. So if, like, you're looking in the ocean, you could see things more clearly in the ocean looking through these glasses than you could just with regular sunglasses or with no sunglasses at all, which is very cool. So maybe if you haven't found a pair of sunglasses yet for this summer, you should check out polarized sunglasses. This is not an ad, okay? This has a purpose, I promise, because we've been talking about justice for the last several weeks, and the Bible gives us a certain lens to look at justice through. The Bible sort of acts as our polarized sunglasses when we're looking at justice. It makes things a little bit clearer. It gives us some more detail on the things that we can be doing and how we can define and approach what justice really is. So, just as a little refresher, we've been looking at Micah 6:8. That's where we've been basing all of our conversations during this series. And this is what Micah 6:8 says. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And this week we're focusing in on act justly. In week 1, we talked about doing something, right? We talked about how we are God's masterpiece, and so is everyone around us. And because of that, we can do something and join in God's mission in bringing justice to the world. And in week 2, we talked about loving mercy and how the world's approach to mercy, the world's approach to justice is much more like punishment oriented instead of merciful, and how God approaches justice in a very different way because he offers mercy to people, and we need to extend that to other people as well. And this week we're talking about acting justly, which just pretty much means doing justice things, doing just things. And we've been operating with the definition of justice being making wrong things right. It's a very simple and I think biblically based definition of the word justice. Now, I'm going to read to you several passages of scripture, okay, from all through the Bible. So I want you to focus in, grab a pen if you want to, and write down things that stick out to you. Maybe write down your favorite passage that I read, any questions you might have about any of these passages, because there's a lot of good stuff here that is all about acting justly. So I'm going to take us through several different passages. We're starting with Micah 6:6-8, which is where our theme verse for this whole series comes from. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. This is James 1:22 and 27. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. This is Psalm 82:3. Defend the weak and fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and oppressed. Zechariah 7:9 and 10. This is what the Lord Almighty said: administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow and the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Do not plot evil against each other. This is Proverbs 31:8 and 9. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. And finally, Amos 5:24. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. All right. I know that was a lot of scripture just right in a row and not really any commentary at all. But all of those scriptures outline biblical views on justice and pretty straightforward ways to approach those things, right? What does justice look like? Defending people who can't defend themselves, taking care of people who are not being taken care of, speaking out for people who don't have a voice. Like, these are things not just that the world is identifying as justice, but that throughout the Bible is associated with God's view of justice. We're putting on our polarized Bible glasses, right? We can see that God's view of justice involves these things, which is so good, because I think sometimes we talk about big ideas and it's hard to know, like, on the ground in my life, what does this look like? But these passages have given us some pretty clear outlines of what this can look like in our lives, in protecting the people around us and acting justly. So if you want to, you can rewind and listen through those again and find the one that speaks the most to you. Find the thing that maybe pricks your heart the most, the thing that you're passionate about and all of that, and write it down. Find your favorite thing, the thing that speaks to you. So I want to also read this quote to us. This is from a guy named Gary Haugen, and he is the president of International Justice Mission, which is this organization that is fighting for justice for people all over the world. They do a lot of really cool stuff. And he said, I have come to see questions about suffering in the world not so much as questions about God's character, but as questions about the obedience and faith of God's people. Yikes. Maybe that, when I read that quote, I'm like, ouch, that kind of hurts, because he's saying so many people see stuff that happens in our world that aren't okay, and they say, why would God allow this to happen, right? Maybe you have thought that yourself. Maybe a friend has asked you that. Like, why would a good God let something like this happen? And he's presenting the idea of, like, where are God's people in these things that are happening? What is our role in taking action and acting justly, right? If there are things that are unjust happening in the world, where are God's people who are supposed to be acting justly? So I want us to be thinking through what acting justly looks like for us in our own lives. And we can kind of break these down into 3 categories, okay? The first thing is like physical. So like meeting someone's physical needs, like offering food or water to someone, or maybe it's volunteering at a shelter, something along those lines. The second thing is relational justice, forming relationships with people. A lot of those scriptures talked about people who were maybe in a situation where they were lonely, like orphans and widows came up in several of those things. Who out there is unjustly being treated in a relational sense? And finally, systemic things that are bigger than just us, right? But things that we can participate in taking down systemic injustice. Things like signing petitions or participating in protests. That's a lot of P's in one little phrase. So, be brainstorming on those three categories, and we're going to be talking about more of those on Zoom, because I want to hear what you come up with and how we can all be acting more justly in those three areas of our lives, day in and day out. What would that look like for us to be taking action in those places in our lives? And one thing we can do is just to keep learning, right? Like I said earlier, there might have been one passage that really struck you that I read earlier. Maybe it's a cause or an issue that just speaks to you, and you may not know why, right? Maybe you have a heart for a certain group of people who've been treated unjustly. That's good. That is so good. And you can be part of a change and acting justly and seeking justice for those people. And you can learn more about what you can do to help. There are experts on all issues, right? You're not expected to be an expert right now on something, but you can start learning more. And there are books and podcasts and TED Talks and all sorts of things that you can start to gather in educating yourself more about how to act justly toward that cause and that group of people. And seeking out people who do know more than you. There are people who have been studying things like racism or homelessness or whatever it may be for years, and they know so much more than you know or I know, and they are really valuable resources to go to. So, learning is just the first step in beginning to act justly. Then we get to take action, right? And act justly, which is a little bit more difficult right now as we are not able to go to everything or see everyone, but we can get creative, right? Maybe, I don't know what this looks like for you in your particular area of interest and the way you want to act justly, but that is why we get to brainstorm together, and I'm excited to do that together on Zoom on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. So, don't miss Zoom on Wednesday at 7. I hope you will come and join in our conversation as we talk more about what it looks like to act justly, putting on our polarized sunglasses and looking at justice together in our world. So, see you then.